Hey, pros and cons. So a reader, yeah, okay. So lots of text on this slide, okay. But land that the podcast of this will be available, a recording will be available, and you can always play it back. But I'll try to go through this fairly succinctly. So there's lots of great benefits of full drips. They provide dollar cost averaging. So again, ignore market timing. You've heard about market timing maybe, and that you're trying to pick and choose and cherry pick when things go up and when things go down. In my opinion, forget about it. There's better things to do with your life and your time. So full drips basically provide dollar cost averaging in that if you're making regular investments and sending these checks into transfer agents or working with share owner, over time you'll kind of normalize basically your purchase costs. So some months maybe you think you'll overpay, and other months maybe you'll underpay, but over time you're going to kind of normalize and even at the cost of those purchases. And to be honest, although studies and academic studies and research papers and journals and et cetera say lump sum investing is probably a better way to invest other than dollar cost averaging, at the end of the day, your savings rate and the fact that you're keeping your costs low and the fact that you are always staying invested, that's going to provide way more, pardon the pun, dividends than worrying about, am I buying too high or too low. Full drips allow you to buy partial shares. When I was doing this a few years ago, you can buy to like 4 decimal places of a share with the transfer agent. So again, neat thing in that you can buy, I own 3.0256, shares of Fortis or something. So those partial shares do accelerate your stock ownership. Most full and synthetic actually have no commission fees. So like I said, at the cost of a stamp, you can be sending in checks to the transfer agents, and that's it. They're not going to charge you $9.95 like a broker would. You send them a check, and basically for no charge, they will go ahead and process it for you. Full and synthetic drips, so again, full with the transfer agents and share owner, synthetic with the discount brokers, take advantage of compounding. So you've heard me say this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. Money that makes money can make more money. And that I've seen on my own portfolio by virtue of just staying invested in a lot of these companies and just letting the dividends come in and get reinvested over time. Many blue chip Canadian stocks have drips and SIPs. So again, the two-pronged piece is important because not only do you want the dividends to be reinvested with the transfer agent or in your own portfolio with your brokerage, but you also want the option of share purchase plans as well. So this is the option of sending in those checks. Many of the stocks, again, you can look at the drip plans on the website, the links that I provided to you earlier. Some of them have no minimum purchase requirement. Others have a minimum purchase requirement, but many of them do not. So again, you can buy your partial stock shares for as little as $10, $15, whatever you wish. Okay, there's 2 types of drips. I won't spend tons of time on this slide, but again, lots of technical information I know, and I'm throwing a lot at you, but it's probably important to know that there are really 2 types of drips that tend to run by any given company or any given transfer agent. You've got the treasury drips, and that's really basically the company's own stockpile of stock. So they can set up a dividend reinvestment plan to purchase more shares directly from that treasury. And when they do that, this is actually a huge benefit in that they will offer shareholders a small discount on the share price. And I'll show you some resources later and tell about some resources later. You can actually see what companies provide as a discount from their treasury. So not only are you getting dividends reinvested, not only are you getting purchases for little money, but they actually give you a discount to participate. So these are all really great benefits. Then there's the market drips, and that's really where the company uses its cash on the open market, like anybody. A huge benefit, whether it's a treasury drip, a market drip, share purchase plan, what have you, I feel one of the biggest benefits of full drips is that it really helps take the emotion out of investing. Meaning you're putting some money away every month, that money has the potential to compound and grow, and you kind of just partition it. You don't really try to think about it too much, right? You can watch the stock market, you can watch the Yahoo Finance, you can look at the tickers all the time, but ultimately, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, a lot of these companies, these blue chip companies at least, that have been established for hundreds of years, like some Canadian banks and some of our companies in Canada have been paying dividends for generations and decades. It really takes the emotions out of investing, because you know with a reasonable amount of confidence, although the future is always cloudy, you will get paid. And so I think that's a very good psychological benefit of dividend investing, in that you really can take the emotions out of the equation. Emotions when it comes to investing are not usually a good thing. Okay, so benefits of synthetic drip. So again, you can turn these on or turn these off, just like the tap analogy, whenever you want. It's really a phone call to your discount broker. So that's very easy to do. Most discount brokers will allow you to drip many Canadian stocks, although some brokerages do not allow dripping for US stocks. So last time I checked BMO Investor Line, one Canadian broker doesn't allow you to drip US stocks. The purpose of this presentation is really dripping Canadian stocks. All that to say, I think it's up to you as the investor to do some due diligence and ask some questions about drips if you're invested or interested in this approach. So you may want to talk to your discount broker, whether it's the Quest Trades, whether it's Q Trade, BMO, whoever, CIBC. I want to start a drip, but what companies do you offer? Do you offer it in all the accounts, registered or non-registered? Do you allow it for Canadian stocks and US stocks? Are there exceptions? So these are all the questions you'd probably want to compile and have a discussion with your discount broker, and before you go down the road of really firming that up with investing with them. And again, dripping in various accounts. A lot of drips that I'm familiar with, certainly with the discount brokers, they do allow you to drip registered. So that's your RSPs, your TFSAs, your RESPs. I didn't list it here, but your LIRA, so your locked-in retirement account, and you can also drip it in a taxable account. Again, pros and cons of that, and we'll come to that too. So downsides of full drips, you cannot control the price of the dividend and reinvestment purchase. So with this one, I caution you a little bit, just because, again, if you feel like, and again, not advocating market timing, but if you feel like, hey, the stock market took a big dive, look, the bank stocks are getting beat up, it looks like the pipelines are getting, and sell is not going through, fine, you want to send some money into your transfer agent or share owner or your discount brokerage, but you don't control the timing of when they make that purchase. It's really up to them. Whereas if you're doing your synthetic drip, you do control the timing, or you can turn your drip on or off, right? We just talked about that. Some say you're not using your dividend income to be strategic. So you remember I went through the 3 types of dividend reinvestment plans. You can do the full drip, you can do the synthetic, or you can do the DIY. A lot of people just prefer to do the DIY because, again, they feel they want to make bets in terms of, hey, I think the stock is going to go down in price, so I'm just going to hoard some cash, and when it goes down, I'm going to make a purchase. And that's a very legitimate downside argument. Again, in my opinion, I would try to avoid the market timing and not be too hung up on the emotions that come with investing, because, again, that can allow you to make some bad decisions. Just basically save at a good rate, invest at a steady rate, pick obviously wise investments that match your investing profile and risk, and basically go to sleep at night. Enjoy the rest of your life. Time consuming, it can be. I mean, you probably appreciate already if you're new, I've thrown a lot of technical terms at you. It can be time consuming. It's a lot to digest for new investors. There's all this terminology you've got to work through. So I do appreciate that, and I had similar concerns when I started with this, because am I filling in the form right? I wonder when they're going to buy the stock for me. I wonder where I'm going to get my statement. So all these things are kind of new, and until you do it, like anything in life, once you do it a couple of times, the anxiety kind of goes down. But I appreciate for newbies, it can be complex and daunting. The cost to buy a share and get it certificated and roll the drip. Again, you've got to get the share from somebody. So you've got to get it from the share exchange board. You've got to get it from the drip club that Moneysaver nicely provides a list of. You've got to buy at least 1 share through your brokerage. You've got to pay the $50, hopefully not the $250 from Quest Trade. Maybe you can negotiate that, but there are charges to get it certificated, and there are paperwork and things to fill in, like I just mentioned, for the transfer agent. So there are costs involved, and some of it is actually your own time. So here's an example. I think I've been getting some emails on my website about what is a DRIP and how do I know I can buy enough shares with it, and what does it actually mean. So here's just a quick example. And that within the downside of a synthetic DRIP with your brokerage, you really need to own, get enough dividend income to buy one full share. And I provided a little example in the green box on the right. So you own ABC, you've got 100 shares. Let's say the share price is 18 bucks, but it pays a quarterly dividend of $15 or 15 cents per share. So 15 cents per share times 100 shares, that's going to pay you 15 bucks every quarter. Well, if the share price is 18 and you only get paid 15, you don't have enough to run that DRIP. So that's one of the downsides, I think, of a synthetic DRIP is you do need to own enough shares to run the DRIP, but when you do, again, not only do you get at least the one share in your bank account, but everything else just sits in cash. And then you can be, like I've already mentioned, a little bit strategic, or you can just save the money and do other things with it. Okay, downsides, more downsides of synthetic DRIPs. I think you need modest accounting skills to keep track of some of this stuff, and it's only relevant for taxable accounts. Now, luckily, there are websites out there, and this is one of my favorites, adjustedcostbase.ca. Again, no affiliation, just free stuff I'm sharing with you tonight. This is where you do need to keep track of your adjusted cost base, and that's basically a fancy way of saying we need you, the investor, to keep track of how much your stocks cost, because at some point when you sell them, you may have to pay a capital gain. And obviously the federal government, our CRA, is very interested in understanding taxable investments, because when you buy a stock, they're not so concerned about money that you threw at it to own it in the first place. They're really more concerned about when you sell, did you make a lot of money off it? And if you did, they're going to tax you. So they're going to tax you in a taxable account. Now, the benefit of synthetic DRIPs as well, and it's worth mentioning, this adjusted cost base issue is only an issue for taxable accounts. So inside a TFSA, it's a tax-free savings account, and it is much more than a savings account, because you can have stocks, you can have bonds, you can have other things in your TFSA, and because you've already paid tax on that to put the money in, it's tax-free. So guess what? You can run a synthetic DRIP, making money inside your TFSA, tax-free. RSPs, to use another example, most of you know those are registered retirement savings plans, or 401ks for our US friends. That's a tax-deferred account. So you put money in, you get a tax credit back for putting the money in. You can use that to offset your employment income, as you know, but at some point, the government will want their loan back, right? They're going to want their RSP fund back, so you're going to have to pay taxes when you withdraw the money out of that RSP. But in the meantime, all your synthetic DRIPs are tax deferred. So again, another beautiful thing in that the money is making money, tax deferred, and that's compounding for you. So be just mindful. Adjusted cost base sounds scary, but it's really only an issue for taxable accounts. And then the other downside of synthetic DRIPs is not every company or not every brokerage honors the dividend reinvestment plan. So I think I mentioned this earlier. Make sure you check with your broker and do some due diligence before you buy the stock. That way, you basically know what you're getting into. Okay, so where am I today and investing plans for the future? So I currently hold 30 Canadian dividend-paying stocks, and I pretty much synthetically DRIP almost all of them for all the reasons that I told you about very early on in the webinar. I like the cold hard cash. It helps me focus long-term. It helps me stay motivated and invested, literally invested in the process. I think it helps take the emotions out of investing. I see the money come in. The dividends buy more shares. Those more shares pay more dividends, and again you get the compounding effect. So that's why I do it. I hold a number of Canadian real estate investment trusts, or REITs, and I also hold a couple of US ones. I won't get into all the tax implications of why I do that, but the short answer is I keep basically my real estate trusts in registered accounts because I don't have to worry about adjusted cost base that you saw on the slide. I also hold some dividend paying stocks, and I also hold a couple of indexed ETFs. And the last point is really important because although I'm a lot of talking tonight about dividend investing and dripping Canadian stocks and all that fun stuff, the reality is that I think indexing is an excellent way to invest. Indexing with exchange traded funds, especially the low cost exchange traded funds, is a super way to invest because you're getting this basket of 30 stocks, the number I have on my slide, in a bundled fund, an exchange traded fund for a low cost, and you're basically getting built-in diversification. So although I do invest in individual dividend-paying stocks in Canada, I also invest in a couple index funds just because I think it just makes sense from a diversification perspective, and I'm hedging my risks. So if you visit my site, and I obviously, I want you to visit my site and interact with me, you'll see a lot of the updates I do every few months and talk about dividend investing. I call myself a hybrid investor. So that means I invest in dividend-paying stocks kind of on one hand, and I also invest in a couple of very low-cost, very highly diversified exchange-traded funds on the other. And I feel by doing that, I'm actually getting the best of both worlds. I get to get the passive income from dividends, and I get to ride the stock market returns, whatever they may be, through the indexing. I'm not saying that's right or wrong for you, but that's how I've decided to do that. So here's a little plan about where we're at, and we've come a long way. And my wife and I are quite pleased with this actually. So this little figure is on our website. In the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about our freedom journey. But we feel, by 2017, so let's say another year out, we're hopefully around 15,000 per year in dividend income. And you can kind of see the little line chart there, how it's trending up. And really our goal for some sort of semi-retirement, maybe we can work part-time, maybe we don't have to work at all, we don't know. But hopefully we're on a good path so that there's some sort of semi-retirement, 7-8 years from now. So that's our plan, is basically stick to the approach that I'm on, keep reinvesting dividends, and when the cash comes in the account, consider buying new shares of dividend-paying companies, or conversely, put that in index funds. But this is really specific to the dividend income journey, and that's kind of where we're at, and that amounts on a per year basis. Part of what I write on the site as well is, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is that there's an opportunity here to live off dividends, and I think it is really possible. So if I go back to this slide very quickly, 11,000 a year, definitely not enough for my wife and I to live off of. But right now, that annual income per year will pay for our property taxes for the rest of our life. It will pay for my hydro bill for the rest of my life. And I don't have to dip into the capital, because the capital is the money, the investments, is what's churning out that income, so I can do those things. So I do believe, based on the journey that we're on, I really do think it's possible to live off dividends. Now, the challenge is you have to save a lot, and we have been saving a lot. So we have been saving a lot over the last many years, and we've been making investments in many of the Canadian dividend-paying stocks that you'll see in the next slides. And I think it is possible. And what I'm assuming, based on our journey, is I'm optimistic we'll get to about 30,000 per year. So that's the dividends coming from the capital that's invested. Give or take, that's about 4% yield. So, we're going to need a huge pile of money, 700,000, 750,000 to get to that 30,000 per year in dividend income. But I honestly think we can do it because we're very passionate about this style of investing. We want to have a high savings rate because we want our money working for us so we don't have to someday. That's really the essence of it. I've got those RSP investments as well, US stocks, ETFs. We've got some small work-based pensions. And then eventually when we get older, hopefully we'll have our good health and we'll be able to rely on a little bit of Canada pension plan and also our OAS, our old age security. So we really can't touch those until we're 60 at minimum, or even an OAS 65. All that said, I think the sum of all the parts is basically what my wife and I are trying to do, is basically build some cash for life and inflation fighting power. And the inflation the inflation fighting power comes from not only maybe some of our benefits and some of the RSP investments that will have appreciation over time, but you recall I also talked about the fact that not only companies pay dividends, but they increase their dividends. That's inflation fighting power. So my plans for the future, and we're getting close to wrapping up here, stay invested and be boring. I kind of like this quote from Warren Buffett. I will by no means be nearly ever as good as an investor he is, but some of the things that he does say, and his quotables are pretty witty, but pretty bang on, I think. And that somebody's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And in my opinion, and what I've learned over my 20 years as I was a teen in investing is you do need to save for your future. Ideally, you do need to invest that savings for your future. And really, to use this analogy a little bit, really the best time to start saving, even if you just have a little bit, the best time obviously was yesterday, but the second best time is today. So our plan has been, since we started our path, to stay invested and stay boring. And what I mean by that is the companies that we invest in, I have no intention of selling them. And many Canadian companies like bank stocks, they've been paying dividends basically for hell or high water. I wrote down some dates for you for how long some of these companies have been paying dividends, and it'll probably shock you because they're older than the country of Canada. So BMO's been paying dividends since 1829. BNS, for example, Bank of Nova Scotia, has been paying dividends since 1832. TD, 1857. CIBC, 1868, and Royal Bank is the newbie on the block, 1870. So these companies have been doing this for a very long time. I have a lot of confidence they'll keep doing it, but again, the future is always cloudy. So that's why I do index investing, because not only am I getting the bank stocks, but I'm getting all the other stocks as well. But I'm going to go on a limb and say, if these banks or some of these companies have been paying dividends for 150 years and more, I've got some pretty good confidence that they'll be paying it in some shape or form for the next 30 years for me. Many Canadian companies may continue to raise their dividends every year. Fortis, for example, again, they've been raising their dividends every year for about 42 years now. That's a lot. And Enbridge is another company. I think they've been paying their dividends for 63 years. They haven't been increasing their dividends, I don't, for 63 years straight, but they've been paying dividends for 63 years. So all that to say, a lot of companies that are pretty boring, things you use every day, electricity, you go to the bank, they've been paying dividends to shareholders for generations. I already talked about TELUS, and they just actually increased their dividend. I think it's now 48 cents a share. And they're going to do it a few times every year until 2019. At least that's what they said on their website. Okay, so what do I own? I own the top holdings in a lot of the ETFs. So we go back to the ETF analogy. Exchange traded funds are great, index funds are great, but part of my strategy is actually own some of the top holdings the funds own. So XFN is I believe an iShares product, and so is XIU. These are ETF ticker symbols. I own the top holdings, so I own the top banks in Canada. I also own the top utilities. I've decided to own some of the oil and gas stocks. Again, buyer beware, because we all know oil and gas has gone over the last few years. I own some pipeline stocks, and I own some telcos, and I own some real estate investment trusts. So basically my theme is, and I think you've seen it, I tend to own the stocks individually, what these top ETFs own. Whether that's going to pay out for me long term, I don't know, because again, the future is never a guarantee. But I've got a lot of confidence that if we've got tens of millions, or in some cases billions of dollars invested in some of these ETFs, and they own the same top holdings year after year after year, maybe I should own them too. So plans for the future: when in doubt, index invest. I haven't talked a lot about this tonight, but to be honest, if dividend investing scares you, if you're unsure about it, if there's too much technical jargon to overcome, I would strongly encourage you to look at index investing and all the research about it. Google it. You can check out my hybrid approach. I talk about indexing an awful lot on my site. I think it's absolutely a stellar way to invest. for all these reasons on the screen and more. You can basically be the market. You can own whatever the broad equity market is. And that means you can own hundreds, if not thousands of stocks for a dirt low fee. I put US dividend ETFs in there because this is something I'm actually looking at myself a little bit more. It's going to be very complex for me to continue to buy as much as the dividend paying companies I like, dozens of US dividend paying companies, because that's a lot to keep track of. So over time, I actually may consider owning just a couple or one dividend ETF and maybe a few US dividend stocks. I'm not there yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But to be honest, all that to say, some dividend ETFs or definitely indexed ETFs are a smart way to invest because you get the built-in diversification as long as the ETFs you're picking are also at a very low fee. Minimum money management fees, I just talked about that, and basically you can set it, forget it. So for one example, there's a stock, an ETF symbol VTI, so that's a Vanguard product. It owns literally thousands of stocks in the US, and you pay, I think for a $10,000 invested in VTI, your money management fees every year are all of $5. So this is a very low cost, simple way to invest, and you be the market, and wherever the market gives you, that's what you'll get back. You don't have to worry about underperformance in mutual funds. You basically get whatever the stock market returns, and we know over time the stock market tends to return quite well, even though short term it can be very much a choppy market or a voting machine. Okay, there are risks with dividend investing. They're not guaranteed. I think I've said it a few times tonight, in that dividends can get cut. The future is always cloudy, and it is. And I put some examples of some companies that I know many dividend investors own, and a couple that I own actually, they've cut their dividend, and that's not a lot of fun. But at the same time, that's the risk you take when you own some individual stocks. So be very mindful in that dividends are not guaranteed. They are part of total return. They are a very good way to invest, but they are not flat out guaranteed. Just because a company pays them today doesn't mean they're always going to pay them. Circumstances arise, and companies have to do whatever they need to do to either stay afloat or maintain their cash flow. Diversification and rebalancing can be a challenge. So again, running the drips is great, but maybe by running your drips, you've built up too much weight in bank stocks, or you've also built up too much weight in other stocks. And so diversification and balancing your portfolio may be a challenge. And so again, that is the caution that comes with dividend investing, because you want to make sure that you're always diversified, and you always want to make sure that your risk tolerance for any company or any sets of companies is in check. If you can't bear the thought of a capital loss or losing a lot of money in stocks, individual stocks, honestly, I would consider another strategy, because again, investing in individual stocks has risks, and certainly, you don't want to take any more risks than you're willing to mentally part with. And so, if stock price is falling, and the futures were tanking with the Trump election and so on a couple nights ago, and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Then maybe you need more bonds, or maybe you need to consider a different strategy. So think about those things as you feel your way through whether dividend investing is right for you. Be careful with the dividend portfolio, because again, I've mentioned this before, diversification does remain the only free lunch in investing. This comes from modern portfolio theory, and the essence of that is really the ability to enhance your returns while suppressing market volatility. So you can actually diversify into more holdings while at the same time reducing your risk profile. Avoid chasing yield. There's tons of examples, unfortunately, for investors where they've got burned chasing high yield stock. Again, high yields are very much a warning sign or a danger sign that if a company continues to pay out a lot of dividends, then they have to have the cash flow to maintain that. And obviously, if the yield is very high, 6%, 7%, 8%, that becomes unsustainable. Companies can't continually appreciate in price, let alone pay lots of money at that rate for very long. So again, high yield, the interest rate very long, assuming tomorrow your portfolio, and then the concentration risk. So I read something actually in our Globe and Mail by a very devout dividend investor, Tom Connolly. He basically said, you know, think about investing in these TULP stocks. So this is the telcos, the utilities, L for I think low dividend yield companies like Canadian railroads and such, and then the F is for financials. So consider investing in the TULP companies that pay dividends and have been doing it for generations. But the downside of that is that you've got concentration risk, right? So you're not investing in materials companies, you're not investing in consumer discretionary companies, you're not investing in industrial companies. So again, be very mindful about your path. So what I focus on maximizing my TFSA or my RSP first. The reason being is I don't have to worry about the adjusted cost base. I don't have to worry about any capital gains, because in the TFSA I've already paid tax. In the RSP I'm deferring my tax. I would strongly recommend, if you do want to do some dividend investing, although working with the transfer agents has been a great experience for me, really now with the TFSA, I think you should focus on maximizing your registered accounts first versus setting up a taxable account that you'll always get taxed on. Reinvest the dividends, but with more shares commission free. We've talked about that. Again, leverage the psychological benefits and focus on the income generated from your portfolio versus the massive stock price swings that you may see. Prices. So again, dividend reinvesting basically has that burned in, right? Because the dividends you get paid, they buy more shares, and if the share price is low, great. It's already done for you. So dividend investing and dividend reinvesting really can embrace those low prices. Conquer the enemy in the mirror. We've talked about that. Really, I think yourself can be your own worst enemy when it comes to emotions and investing. So again, it allows you to focus on the cash coming in. Allows you to look at the long term. And those are great benefits of dividend investing. It can be very rewarding. I think my journey has been, selfishly has been great. I enjoy this. I have a passion for it. And it is a lot of fun, including doing webinars like this. The TSX holds predominantly financials and energy. So again, with dividend investing, you can actually say, hey, I want to own more utilities, or hey, I want to own more Rogers or Bell or whatever the telco of the day may be. So again, with indexing, you're kind of the benefits are you're being the market, but on the flip side, if you want to do a little bit more dividend investing, you don't really have that flexibility. So dividend ETFs or owning those companies, utilities, telcos are a way to do it. I avoid money management fees because the dividends are I own the stock. Once I own the stock, certainly if it's in a TFSA or RSP, I don't have to worry about my tax situation, at least for a long time. I don't have commissions. The dividends get reinvested commission free. And I basically created my own ETF. So my 30 stocks, I've basically come up with my own portfolio balance where I own certain bank stocks, certain utilities, certain telcos, what have you, and I pretty much created my own ETF. Okay, resources. I can't leave without thanking, obviously, the Moneysaver folks, not only for the overtime, but also everybody there who's been very supportive of my journey. The fans of the site, they follow it, they tweet me, we interact online. It's great. So to Lana, to Ryan Modesto, to Peter Hodson, it's great that you're fans of the site, and I'm fans of you as well. If you don't subscribe already, I encourage you. I think for all of what it costs, maybe a 6-pack or a bottle of wine or something very cheap, you can read all the articles about beating the TSX. So that's a strategy that I didn't talk about tonight, but there's some great articles by David Stanley in the past and Ross Grant now that talk about trying to beat the TSX with basically a strategy that is dividend investing, but it's a little bit of a tweak on that. There's drips and SIP references in there. There's features and guest writers, and they're very nice to ask you once in a while to contribute, so that's great. 5i, again, they're a partner on my site. They provide independent conflict-free research. It's great to have them partner with me. They do very thorough analysis on large cap stocks, mid cap stocks, Canadian stocks. So again, you're welcome to check them out, and if you feel that's a resource for you, then you can certainly sign up for them and give them a try. There's dividend reinvestment calculators. I've just put a couple of my favorites here. long run data and buy upside. They've got a host of other calculators on there, but again, pretty cool sites to do some math, and you can see how stock returns have been, how dividend returns have been, and a whole slew of other calculations. Okay, TMX Money, I go on there, I look at cash flows from the companies that I own, I look at financial statements, or not financial statements, but I look at the finances of those companies. I do read the financial statements that come in the mail to me from the companies I own. But again, TMX Money I think is a nice, handy Canadian site that you can use, and very, very user-friendly. Globe and Mail, I read it a lot. I've been fortunately quoted in there quite a bit. So thanks to Rob Carrick and the gang that do that. There's tons of blogs, excellent Canadian blogs. I think $1 Million Journey is going to be on a future Moneysaver webinar, so look for him. We share very similar investing strategies, and I've been a big fan of his site for many years. Other sites include Young and Thrifty, a very good millennial-focused blog. Again, good friends with those guys, and they do a great job managing their site. There's also Canadian Couch Potato, very much an indexed-focused site for lazy passive investing, but Dan Bortolotti has put tons of work into that site over the years, and it's a top-notch site for index investing, but also he does post articles about dividend investing and ETF and all sorts of articles on ETFs. And Preet Banerjee, he's not blogging very much anymore, but you probably know him from CBC fame. He writes in the Globe and Mail. Again, he does TV shows. He does it all. And he's actually got a YouTube channel called Money School, which I find very, very interesting and very refreshing and very smart and witty. And he puts together little snippets of videos of all things related to personal finances and money. So you can subscribe to his channel, and for all of 2 or 3 minutes to watch one of his videos, it's a wealth of knowledge. So check that out. And then books. So I put a few here that I've liked. I mean, again, the Derek Foster was a motivation for me, but I've got the One-Page Financial Plan. So that's Carl Richards. He's a U.S. writer, and again, very simple stuff, but really important stuff to help you manage your money. Stephen Jarlowski, again, Canadian billionaire. Again, very, very knowledgeable. Has always been a very astute investor, and reading his book was well worth the $20. And then Single Best Investment. This is a U.S. focused kind of book, again by Lowell Miller, about all the creating wealth through dividend growth investing. So again, some of my favorite resources. I can't close by saying the #1 resource you should check out is my advisor. So I encourage you to sign up via email. You'll get all my email posts. You can look at the dividend output. You can read what are my top dividend ETFs. You can read about how to save more money at the bank, how to avoid bad insurance, a whole whack of stuff. So definitely it runs the gamut from dividends to personal finance to saving to really travel tips and more. So check it out, subscribe. Happy to see you around the site and answer your comments. And the last word, I'm finally here, guys, so thanks for hanging with me. I use this pick from Behavior Gap, so that's the Carl Richards book I showed you earlier, and he's kind of a napkin guy. He writes these little pictures on napkins and Post-its and stuff. And, you know, at the end of the day, you make a lot of assumptions in your financial plan, and you've got, you know, years go by, 10, 20, 30 years go by, and, you know, really the delta between what's in your plan and what's in your future are really nothing more than a bunch of assumptions and guesses. And that's like any plan in your life. You know, you have best intentions to do something this week, you have best intentions to do something next year, and sometimes they don't come through. So I'm leaving this with you because at the end of the day, you know, I think it's important to have a financial plan, to have a roadmap for your financial journey, to you know, work with your spouse, your significant other, your family, or you know, do it on your own, and come up with something that really will help you in your life to be a little bit more financially free, to give you some freedom of choices. But at the end of the day, know that everything in your plan is just that. It's really a bunch of assumptions and guesses for your future, and things can change. And life has a way of doing that for us. So don't get overly beat up about any one situation. Do your best, have a plan, focus on the long term, think about your savings rate, sock a little bit of money away, and over time, hopefully through my journey, what you've realized is that little baby steps that take, that seem very painful and very trying many years ago actually can work out to big rewards if you give it enough emphasis and you have enough discipline to kind of keep at it. So thank you to Canadian Moneysaver, fans of the site, well over time on the webinar, but I hope it was well worth it for you.